Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. So yeah, there's just a lot of stuff going on. And I'm talking about it, and probably a couple of dozen or 3 or 4 dozen other YouTube channels are all talking about it. I mean, the whole Putin speech, the Biden speech, the stuff that's kind of transpired since then. It's like the war drums are beating louder and harder and faster, and they want to go to war. At least that's the appearance. Now there's, talk that they believe that there's very credible evidence that Russia is getting ready to invade Moldova. Who knows? I mean, yesterday they had really solid, credible evidence that Russia was going to take out infrastructure in the North Sea, the windmills and the cables under the sea and all that kind of stuff, pipelines. There's all kinds of stuff. And then that's just on the European front. I mean, I've lost track already today. I've lost track today of how many posts I've seen of various industrial fires, train wrecks. There was a train wreck or something involving coal, coal, there's coal everywhere. That's not something that's a terribly dangerous thing, but it's infrastructure. And there's been a lumber yard that was burned and another metal something factory. And I guess some industrial park, a bunch of cars caught on fire. It looks like at least a couple of people died. I think there's more. I can't keep up. I mean, I'd have to have a full-time staff at this point just to keep up on all this stuff. And of course, the question is, well, at least one of the questions, is this stuff a coordinated, orchestrated attack, or is it some of it is just the things that happen on a daily basis? Because I mean, it's a big country. It's a lot of factories. It's a lot of trains. It's a lot of semis. There are accidents that happen. There are wrecks that happen. There are explosions and fires that happen. So how much of it is just that because everyone's hyper focused on it right now, everyone's reporting on it? It's kind of like when you buy a car and then you start driving that new car and you drive around like, oh, I see that one. Oh, there's one just like mine. Oh, there's another one like mine. And you're like, man, I didn't know there were this many cars just like mine on the road. Well, it's because you didn't have that car, so you weren't focused on that car. But now that we're focused on it, is that the reason why? Or, like I said, is it because that there's this coordinated effort, whether it's a foreign entity like China or Russia or someone else? I mean, there's certainly been enough illegals coming across the border over the last couple of years to send plenty of operatives across the border to do many, many attacks on our infrastructure. And we have a failing infrastructure. I mean, that's not a very far liberal type of idea. It's true. We have major infrastructure problems in this country. And so it's not that difficult, I would think, to wage an attack on a lot of these places to just cause chaos and disruption and fear and make it look like it's just failing infrastructure, because, well, the reality is it is failing. I don't know. I guess there was another balloon in Hawaii. Something like that. I don't know. There's people are obsessed about this thing that washed up on the shores of Japan. It looks like one of them metal buoys, and everyone keeps thinking it's some kind of like alien or something. I don't know, or UFO, or it's like it's gonna hatch open and it'll be Godzilla. But it just looks like one of those metal buoys that they use, and which brings me to kind of a point here. Excuse me, a tickle in my throat. Need a little sip of coffee again. Brings me to kind of a point, at least for a moment. I don't know, you may not even know what I'm talking about with the metal buoy, but if you don't, out in the ocean they use these buoys, and they're gigantic. They're like 6-7 feet in diameter, and they're made out of steel, but they're hollow. They're filled with air, and so because of that, even though they're steel, they float. I mean, ships are made out of steel and they float. And there's a lot of people saying, oh, it can't be one of those buoys because it's made out of steel and it would sink. And I've seen other things, since all this chemical fire stuff's been going on, they'll show a street it's been raining, or that there's snow melting off of it, and you'll see the little iridescent rainbow along the side of the pavement. And they're like, oh, see, there's chemicals everywhere. Yeah, there's chemicals. It's a street. It's made out of asphalt. It's, oil-based, and cars, trucks driving on it, dripping oil and gasoline. So, Most streets after rain you can find that, or after snow when it's starting to melt off, especially if it hasn't rained for a while. So the point that I'm trying to get at is that I'm seeing, along with legitimate things that are happening, I'm seeing people that they're kind of panicking. They're kind of, I don't know, a lot of people are kind of losing it. Just, becoming really paranoid, hyper paranoid about things, that maybe everything is out to get us. Everything is a government attacking us. Everything is some kind of, covert operation that's happening to tear us down. And while I'm sure there's a lot of it, I don't think everything is. I mean, I think the big steel ball is just a big buoy. I mean, that's what it looks like. I don't think the balloons flying around are aliens. Just don't. Which brings me to kind of a point. And I talked about this the other day, and a lot of people got it. And a lot of people totally missed the point. It's just what happens. And I was talking about psychological operations. And I think a lot of people think that when I say a psychological operation, they think it's like what's called now a deep fake, meaning something that's not real. You see a video that looks like Biden doing something silly, and you're like, oh, but it's actually CGI or AI controlled. It's computer generated image. There's in fact one right now. It's Biden, and he's giving a speech, and he turns to walk away like he always does, and he starts walking away, and all of a sudden the audio cuts out a little differently, and it's Biden, and he's making, oh, these idiots, you think that they'll believe that? And it's supposed to be a hot mic take of his. It's completely fake. You can hear the audio's different, and he's not wearing a lapel mic. He's standing at a podium with the microphone attached, so as he walks away and goes off stage, where's the microphone? Where's the hot mic? He doesn't have a hot mic on. And everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people are just freaking out about that and sharing it because they think it's real. That's a deep fake. But it can also be a psyop. Psychological operations can be very, very real events. Okay? Very real. They really do happen. They really are bad. Someone really blew up the train tracks. Someone really drove a train after the axle fell off for another 40 miles or whatever. It really did happen. And they really did light it on fire. And they really did put a bunch of chemicals everywhere. Really did. But it can also be a psychological operation. And it doesn't have to necessarily mean that that event was the psychological operation. It could be the response and reaction from that is a psychological operation. And I'm seeing that a lot more now, that whether it's, and it probably is, but whether it's an entity out there putting on these psyops, or it's just people that are hyper paranoid. I mean, you've got all these various foreign and domestic government agencies that could be doing this. You've got, these bots, these computer bots making comments that could be stirring things up. It's kind of like back in the BLM riots. You'd see 50 people standing there, and you'd see one guy walking around, hey, let's go throw the bricks into that building, hey, let's, and then that one person would get everyone fired up to where they started becoming violent. Same thing happened at January 6th too. Those were those FBI guys they say weren't there. But anyways, we're seeing that online. I'm trying to get to a point. I know I'm like spaghetti thoughts everywhere, but stay with me. Maybe. Try to. We're seeing these things happen. I'm seeing it. And I was thinking about this today. I thought, for someone that would work into some type of government covert type of position where they're doing psychological operations, right now must be about the easiest time that it's ever been, because you've got the internet. Before, you had to, actually physically do things and go down to the paper and have a ad run or a story run. You'd have to get out there and start whispering and, all that kind of stuff. Now you just make some ridiculous posts, and you don't even have to do it. You can set up a computer, AI chatbot kind of thing that makes all these ridiculous posts. And then now you've got the whole country in hysteria. And so I think we're at a stage right now where there's multiple real bad things going on. When I say real bad, I mean real that are bad. They're real things, and they're bad, and they're going on. And I think that there's other things that probably are complete deep fakes, don't exist, like the whole Biden audio thing. I'm 99.99% positive that's a complete fake, didn't happen. You can hear it, it doesn't even sound right. And then I think there are things that it's just hysteria. It's just people's hysteria. And what that tells me is, and here's where I'm getting to my point. The hysteria is something that's causing red flags and bells and whistles to go off in my head. And what it tells me is that we as a population, as a people, are quite ripe for chaos and destruction. That whatever their goal is of doing these things, of causing a stir, of getting people in a panic and getting people terrified and getting people fighting and getting people where they don't trust anything or anybody, there must be getting pretty close to their goal, because we're seeing that a whole lot. I've seen what I believe, and I'm kind of got my ear on the traffic a little bit because of this channel. Just since the Ohio train thing, I've seen a pretty big uptick in all this, of just this panic. And this is happening. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Oh, this is going on. This is going on. And some of it can be easily explained. Some of it, it's just, well, you must not understand science, because that's just a normal phenomenon. And some of it, there's no explanation for it whatsoever. And then some of it, it's probably some guy that's just, he just wants to get views, man. He wants to get those clicks and those likes, and he wants to be famous for a few minutes and go viral. So he's making this video, making this audacious claim. And too many people are just already in such a state of panic and fear that they don't really kind of check it out, or they don't stop and think, does that even make any sense? And then what we have is this growing monster, really, of panic and chaos, and it's building and it's building. And I have to think that somewhere in some little dark little office, some PSYOP group, whether it's military or CIA or someone, they're probably sitting there saying, man, we never thought it would be this good. We didn't think that they would react this way. Man, we must be getting really good. And I think it's because people are tired. They're worn out. I mean, we've had 3 years of chaos and panic and fear, and World War III is going to happen any day now, in the last 365 days, We're told constantly that they're going to drop a nuke on us, and there's another pandemic, and the economy's going to collapse, and it's just every other day we're hearing this. So I think people are in a panic, and I think that's in a dangerous place for us right now, because even if none of these events that we worry about actually happen, just the fact that people are in such a state of panic, they could cause an event themselves. Their panic could cause an event. Their panic could cause a run on the grocery stores, or a run on the gas stations, or a run on the banks, or violence, or something else. And so I would just be cautious, because number one, be cautious of what you're watching and listening, and make sure it's as real as you can, prove it. Do some research, do a little searching around, read in the comments, think logically, does that even make sense, And then also be careful and be cautious and prepared of the fact that it seems like that we are kind of ripe for the picking right now. We're, the American population is this really perfectly juicy, ripe tomato. And you know what happens when you have a perfectly juicy, ripe tomato? You got to pick it. And so someone's going to pick that tomato, and then that's the American people. And what I mean by that is that someone, if they really wanted to do something bad to us, if they wanted America to really stumble to its knees really quickly, I think right now, or we're at least getting close to it, would be a very opportune time, because Americans just seem to be at that place where we trust nothing and no one, constant state of fear, constant not understanding what's going on, misinformation, lies, distrust. It's just all over. And if there is an enemy out there that truly wants America to collapse, I would think that right now is a good time. And so I think that alone right there is something that we should be preparing for, and should be cautious of, and should be consciously aware of, that just the panic of the people, the mindset of the people, the state of fear that we are in itself right now, is a potential, real potential SHTF. And that should be something that we watch and that we listen for, and that we guard ourselves, our thoughts, our emotions also, but that we're also preparing ourselves for all the other people out there that aren't guarding themselves. Because it's like cattle. I've used the analogy many times, and it's true if you've ever worked with them. It doesn't take much to spook the herd, and when they get spooked in the wrong way, they can stampede. I've had it happen. I've watched it happen. And it doesn't matter what's in their way, they'll stomp it to the ground, running in panic and fear. And most of the cows, if not all of them, they don't even know what they're running for. They don't even know what happened. They have no clue. All they know is that everybody else is running, so we got to do the same. And they'll run over anything in its path. They'll run right off a cliff. And so we have to be aware of that and make sure that we aren't those cattle stampeding, and that we are not the ones running off the cliff, and that we're also prepared for when the cattle start to stampede. Folks, right now it's time to get your house in order. It's time to prepare mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.